Guys, in the interest of time management and productivity, I probably overcapitalized a little bit in terms of all the stuff I wanted to teach. So I'm just going to jump straight into it. And then we can just do a bit of a wrap up at the end. I think it's fair to say we've all had a week before. Certainly we've had days, but definitely had weeks where you go, fuck, where did that week even go? I don't actually know what we did this week. And I would say to all of us that if you don't know what you did with the last hour, you didn't do anything substantial. And so like anything that requires the fullest focus and attention that you have is something that you're going to be truly aware of what you were doing. But you could easily spread that in thin over so many different things and go, I don't really know what I accomplished, but I did stuff, but I don't think I actually moved the needle forward. Like the football didn't move further up the field, so to speak. So it's very important to have an awareness of that, that if you don't have an awareness, it means that you just wasted the hour. Time management is only one aspect. We've also got energy management as well, which is also very, very important. And so there's going to be days, depending on, obviously, there's going to be days in the week where you can have more energy than less. And that has to do with a variety of different factors. But there's also certainly going to be times in the day where you're more energized than others, right? And that has a lot to do with just, what type of, I'm not going to use the word personality type because it's not that. It's what's known as a chronotype. But we'll talk about that a little bit. I mean, the key essence here is, though, you're understanding that if you're eating well and you're moving your body, you're going to have the best chance of success to have a great day. So we're going to go through quite a lot of stuff today. And then I'll jump out as well. We'll do questions at the end. So take as many notes as you can. We've obviously got it recorded anyway. I'll send you the slides as well. If you get a couple of things that make an impact, guys, long-term makes a huge fucking impact. So, 1% improvement daily on productivity over the course of a year is 365% improvement productivity increase, which is massive. But more than that as well, what it does is it builds so that it's 1% better every day and more productive every day means you get, compounded effect. So today's 1%, next day's, 1.1, whatever it is percent. So the goal is to continue to improve that as well and to continue to sharpen the saw. And there's certainly going to be times in our lives where shit goes wrong. And, the reality is those weeks are about just holding on. I think Jason made an excellent point in the wellness session on Saturday, which was understanding that there are weeks where the success of the week is just maintenance, right? So from a fat loss perspective, he wants to lose weight, but if there's a week where it's hectic and crazy, we've got fights and stuff going on, in that week, if we just manage to maintain where we are, that's a victory. And the same thing goes for productivity and output. There's weeks where you just get through the week and that's a huge week. There's other weeks as well where you can really make progress and move things forward. We've got to be having an awareness of that as well, because time is not carbon copy in the sense of you can just copy and paste it. It works like that on a spreadsheet and in a Google Calendar, but the reality of our days are completely different. I mean, yesterday is a good example. We couldn't have expected or anticipated that You Can Book Me would shit itself, but it did, and so we have to adapt. And so that chucks a spanner in the works because we're not in our normal rhythm and routine. So we'll go through this. Hopefully you guys get a heap out of it as well, and we can use some of these distinctions to improve our lives. I've really tried to build this more as you getting the most out of your life. And, there's an element that sometimes we tend to be very focused at work, but we're not very focused in our personal lives. And so if you're not very focused in your personal life and you're not actually focusing on what's my outcomes there, well, then you've missed opportunities with your kids. You've missed opportunities to connect with your family. You've missed opportunities to potentially, develop yourself personally, learning a new language or an instrument or all of those things. It's like the people that have those things in their lives are no different to us. They still have the same amount of time. They probably still work just as hard. They're certainly just as smart, but they're just more structured and they're more focused on what they want to get out of their lives. And so I think having that awareness and having that outcome is very, very important. So with that in mind, let's jump into it. We'll go through some really cool stuff. Happy days. So first thing I want us to be aware of is that time, not money, is our most valuable resource. And it's a single defining factor of your success is how you spend or invest your time. And plenty of us will even waste it. But if you're certainly spending it or investing it, it's going to go a long way to you being able to have a much better quality of life. And you think about time in terms of the time it takes to go to university or the time it takes, to start a job and pursue an apprenticeship, for example. And those time investments have a long-term return, right? But it's also what we do on a daily basis. The time that you spend going to the gym every single day in that day makes no difference, ultimately. But over the course of 90 days has a big difference. The time that you spend better connecting with your family has no difference in that exact moment. Obviously, it makes you feel good, them feel good. But over long term, it builds deep friendships and relationships. And, I remember reading a post, which is that you can't create new old friends. And what I mean by that is, building a friendship takes time, energy, and effort. You've got to invest that into that. You can't, get to your 50s and 60s and go, okay, great, I'm going to have a new friend that's an old friend that I've spent my whole life growing up with. So you've got to invest those things that are important. And I want you to appreciate that most people have a mentality around work-life balance, which is that got to do work, I've got to balance everything out. And the reality is that work shouldn't distract or take away from any aspect of your life, providing that you're focused on what you want from the other aspects of your life. Work takes away from everything else because you tend to be focused on work and you're not focused in any other area. And as a result, where focus goes, energy flows and results show. And so it's very important that we've got an awareness of that. And just so you know, what more and more you guys are going to realize is as you go through this process, that actually you're not that busy. You don't have that much shit to do. And that often you work because you're bored, because you've got nothing more meaningful to do with your time. Now, that's both an inspired position to be in because we're grateful that we've got a great organization, but it's also a pretty sad reality in the sense of, and I know I certainly had this experience in this year, particularly with COVID going, I don't have anything else in my life other than work and spending time with Ash. And we spend most of our time working. So it's like, great, I've got to create a compelling future for myself outside of work such that it energizes and excites me and uplifts me. For the guys that are in sales, and in fact, for everybody in the team, I want you just to appreciate this point. I want everyone to think about your work that you do with us as if you're running your own business. Because in doing that, number one, you're going to take the work more seriously, but you're certainly going to put a greater level of expectation on yourselves to get a certain volume of work done in a certain amount of time and produce a certain outcome. And there's a couple of things to consider in terms of how much you get paid at Wild Success. One is the amount that you receive. Number two is the amount it costs us to pay you that money. So effectively, if we were to have somebody else do it, or if we would pay you every week, there's that exchange of value. But there's also what you should be making for the company in order to be able to make that worthwhile, right? So if we're paying you $1,000 a week, you should be generating more than $1,000 a week in value. Otherwise, we're just basically spending $1 to make $1. There's no point. So your value should be greater than what you get paid. But then also, if you want to make more money, you've got to start doing different activities to get there. So when you look at what it works out at in terms of different incomes, for us to be able to have, a multi-million-dollar business, that means that every hour that we spend, our goal is to do $2 million cash this year, which means that every hour that is spent in this business has to be worth about $1,250. Now that's spread across the teams. Everyone has a different role to play, but certainly if you're thinking about this from a sales standpoint and your goal is to bank $250, well then every hour of your day for 40 hours of your week needs to be doing $156 an hour. And so if you're not doing that, then the reality is you're not going to get there. Because if you don't do it this hour, you've got to do double next hour. And if you don't do it that hour, you've got to do triple the following hour, and then it just stacks. So there's obviously big numbers here, but certainly we can apply that to any amount that you guys are making and go, okay, well, what is effectively my hourly rate? And, if my hourly rate works out at $25 or $30 or whatever the number is, did I produce at least that value in this hour? And if you did, that's the minimum because you should be producing more. So it's like, well, did I produce 5x or even 10x my value in that hour? And if I didn't, then I've got to have a conversation of, well, did I do the work that was important? And also, am I doing any work that's worth that? Because you have an awareness of what you do in the role that we don't. And so if you're doing work that effectively is an $8 an hour task, realistically, and you're getting paid $30 to do it, well, the reality is we want you to be doing work that's worth $100, and then there's a value prop as part of that together. So it's a win-win, right? And you actually will get paid more for bringing those subject matters up than if you just keep doing the same work, because eventually we'll realize and go, fuck, with someone's sick with this. So I want us to think about really, what am I doing that's actually productive and effective, and how can I be able to better do that more effectively? So this is how most people mess this up. Number one is they get trapped in a busy cycle. They confuse activity with productivity. And the distinction is that productivity is productive activity. It's activity that produces a result. One of our favorite quotes we use all the time is that there's no point doing effectively that which should not be done at all. And so a lot of people spend their time majoring in minor things, and they spend a lot of time doing stuff that doesn't contribute in any way to the end result, but they just got into a habit of this is the way that it's always been done. And number two is they don't have a life outside of work. That's important to put pressure on work to conform to your life, not life conform to your work. So the more things, the exciting things you've got going on around work, the more pressure you've got on work to get shit done during that time, but also a really fulfilling and really rich and vibrant, wild personal life. What that does is that fills you up emotionally to be able to contribute more to the work that you're already doing. So it's actually a win-win by having more active work. And I'd say to that as well, we all understand this principle. If you've got to go on a trip on Friday and you're away for the weekend, watch how amazing you'll be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday to make sure you get the same amount of work done in a shorter amount of time. And this is what's known as the theory of liberating constraints, which we'll go through today. But it's also, it's like, great, you come back from a holiday recharged and re-energized. We want to make sure we have that. Next one is they don't focus on revenue generating activities. And so effectively that's activities that make money. Now in our company, we can all be focused on revenue generating activities, even if you're not working in sales, because ultimately everything should be allocated or coordinated to reducing cost or increasing revenue, right? We should be doing those two things. And some factors are not an activity that would be a first order consequence, but it might be by doing a customer service email, for example, that client becomes happy, which means that they stay engaged, or it means that they upgrade, or it means that they refer. So it should be first or second order consequence. Everything that we do should contribute to a decrease in cost or an increase in revenue. And when you look at your work, if you can't honestly see how that connects, then we need to have a conversation, because I don't want you doing anything that doesn't directly correlate to those two things in us being able to make it happen. And as I said, it might not be first, but it might be or should be second order for everybody. And certainly for the sales team, everything that we do is first order consequence. And next one is they confuse movement with productivity. Effectively, they're busy being busy. And this is a massive one for a lot of people, is that they have work guilt, which is that if they're not working, they feel like they're going backwards, or that they're failing, or that they're not putting in the amount of effort that's required. And this is actually an issue in the fact that some people are just unproductive, and so they have guilt, and so that forces them to work longer hours. But it also happens as well when you become super productive and you're getting a tremendous amount done in a fraction of the time, but your mindset is, I've still got to work really hard all the time. And so, sorry. Sorry, my wife just had an aneurysm. You okay, baby? Fucking 3 years we've been together, and she's only just picking up. She's like, fuck, this guy's first time in our relationship, he shared something with me that really connected.
I learn from you every day, baby.
I love you. So this is a big one. This is a really big one. And I know this is something that we've struggled with a little bit, in the sense of I haven't struggled with it, Ash has. And part of that is because I've got just a different engine in terms of work. I love working. I think about it all the time. It's just, it energizes me. In the same way that when we go to the gym, I know that Ash is just an animal in there, right? There's no way that I have the level of cardio, endurance, and stamina and power that what she has. I don't try to compete with her in the gym. But on the same token, when you're in an intimate relationship and I'm working longer hours, or I'm naturally in that space and she wants to rest and recover, if you're not set in who you are and comfortable by taking rest, then is an element of, well, am I letting the team down? That's never been an issue for me, because I'm happy to do it because I enjoy doing it myself anyway. But that's an important aspect of your relationships as well that you want to be across, because you want to make sure you have that time together. They live life in distraction, which we're going to talk about in a big way, and they have no clear plan of what to do, so they end up doing nothing significant. This is super important. So let's jump into it. We went through the time audit, and we looked at a couple of things. So I want you to keep this in mind when we think about the reflections we just had. What days did you work, and what were the hours that you worked? Also, what was your total amount of work time? And when you think about your total amount of work time, what did your hourly rate work out at? Because if you're going to achieve a higher level of income, you have to be willing to do different things. And pardon me, you've got to be able to allocate your focus in different ways. So we went through that, and I'd be fascinated to know what your productive time was versus your unproductive time, and understanding that's not time where you were distracted as opposed to time you were working, because just because you were working doesn't mean you were productive. It just meant that at least you're engaged. So there's two numbers here, really. There's engaged time versus disengaged time. But then in that engaged time, a good percentage of that would have been unproductive time, because you would have been reactionary or distracted anyway, and getting into your flow of figuring out, shit, what am I meant to do? So the productivity time is even lower than the total amount of time worked again. And that's very, very important. And so when you look at the numbers, I think the average person only does 2.3 hours a day of productive work. And half a day a week is spent doing duplicate work. So it means that they're doing the same shit that they could have done already because they're task switching. And we're going to go through that today. So a couple of power questions to keep in mind as we go through this. Number one is, did you have an outcome for this time? So when you think about the time that you spend doing an activity, in reflection, you should ask yourself, did you have an outcome that you were working towards? You know, before you start something, before you sit down in front of the computer, before you pick up the phone, you should have an outcome. Obviously, in a sales environment, it's very clear. Make a booking, make a sale, for example. But when we're doing administration work, or when we're doing media work, or when we're doing coaching work, that might not always be as clear. So we've got to get clear on what is the outcome of what I'm about to do. Because until you have an outcome, you shouldn't do anything. You know, you have to start with the end in mind and reverse engineer it. Now, in the beginning, by the way, just so you know, this is going to be frustrating, because there's going to be a part of you that just wants to keep going with momentum and wants to get into the flow of just getting shit done. And that's all good, but the challenge is we can very easily head in the wrong direction. And so you've got to take time to stop and to train your brain to ask the serious question of, what do I want? You know, very often, and this happens for me all the time, particularly in creativity stuff, I'll sit down and I'll map out a campaign or a marketing strategy or a plan or something like that. I'll have a whole heap of great ideas. I would spend a couple of hours on it, and I'll go and speak to Kim. And the first thing Kim nearly asks me every single time is, what's the outcome? What do you want to achieve? And I go, oh, okay, well, you know, there's this, there's a couple of different outcomes. He goes, no, what's the one thing that you want to achieve from this? And we get clear on that. He says, okay, well, to be fair, that's all that stuff you're going to do is not the easiest way to get from A to B. You could just do this. And I was like, well, that's not as sexy as all the stuff I just talked about. He said, but that's more effective. So I ended up then scrapping all of the creative shit and then just focusing on the one thing that's going to go from A to B. And that's very important, right? Otherwise, you get into the trenches, you start doing a whole heap of stuff, and we forget the outcome. So ask yourself, do I have an outcome for this time? Was it written down? That's also important, because you can have bracket creep, right? So you start in your head with, oh, this is the outcome. And as you get into it, you change what the outcome was. It's like, no. Is it written down? In this next hour, this is what I'm going to accomplish and achieve. And ideally, it's on your calendar, so you know what you're going to do, but having it written down in terms of a key milestone. We're going to talk about doing that in the day, but you can also do that in the block of time you've got. Did you accomplish it? Yes or no? This is also important, right? You start, maybe you've got an hour or 90 minutes to work on something. You get to the hour and a half. You don't just keep working until you got it done. No, you had 90 minutes to get that done. It didn't get done. Great. So now we've got to wait until the next block of time that we've allocated for that activity. Because otherwise, it's like, well, what we'll do is we'll just keep stretching time. And there's a principle, I want you to write this down. It's called the Pareto principle. And basically what it means is this, that time will expect or time will expect or what am I saying? Time will expand or contract. Sorry. Time will expand or contract to effectively the resources available. So if you've got 30 minutes to get something done, you'll get something done in 30 minutes. But if you give yourself 90 minutes to do it, you'll get it done in 90 minutes. And if you don't get it done in the 30 minutes, will be to get whatever you can get done in the 30 minutes and then allocate another block of 30 minutes, because you'll probably end up getting it done within the hour and it wouldn't take you an hour and a half. So being hard on those deadlines means that you put forced restriction in place, again, theory of liberating constraints, and it means that you're going to hit that roadblock, you'll learn from it, and then you'll evolve moving forward from there as well. Next is to understand what percentage of your time was productive versus unproductive. That's important. And then this is a really great question. And I'd encourage you probably to reflect on this on a daily basis, which is, if you were fully focused, how many days would it take you to actually produce the results you're currently producing? I will put it to most of you that if you were fully focused and really well organized, that you could achieve the same result in certainly 4 days, but probably for many of us 3 days, that you're currently spending 5 days to do. And we've said this many, many times, and I'll say it again. I don't care how long it takes you to do something. I just care about the results that we achieve. So if you can achieve a result in a fraction of the time, I'm still happy to pay you the same amount, right? Because we're not paying you for the amount of hours that you work. We're paying you for the results that you achieve. So what that means is, if you can produce a better result in less time, you get paid more. If you produce the same result in less time, you'll have more free time for the same money. So it's very pragmatic. Now, on the same token, I also want you to appreciate that I really value hard work and I value people going above and beyond. So we just got to have a conversation about that. But all things considered, if you can get more done in less time, credit to you, credit to us, happy days. I'm certainly working through any aspects in my own life of going that I need to be on all the time. And I don't. I work because I really want to, not because I have to. So that's very important. And then the next question is, well, what could you do with all the other time? You know, one of the things you'll realize, you put in place that structure, you realize you've got nothing else to do with your time. So that's great. But if you're going to spend time doing stuff just because you want to, we'll give you new shit to do. We don't have to keep just spreading out the stuff that you were going to do in 3 days. We don't have to spread it over 5 days. We can give you new and exciting projects to work on that are going to help you grow personally and professionally, or take the time for yourselves and your families and enjoy that time more productively. Does that make sense for everybody? Yeah, magic. Awesome. And so here's a great concept, which is what's known as a Pomodoro time. And Alex touched on it a little bit, but the idea is that our brains work in 90-minute meridian cycles. So that's why sleep cycles are important, why you should aim for 7.5 hours of sleep, because it works out as your meridian cycle in the right way, right? So that's important. Now, when we're working, if you want to allocate 90 minutes to an activity, not every activity needs 90 minutes, but let's say you were, what I would encourage you to do is do 20 minutes on, maybe 10 minutes off. Or working towards being able to do, say, 45 minutes on and then 5 or 10 minutes off. But effectively, what we want to do is we want to break down a 90-minute block into either 3 30-minute blocks or 2 45-minute blocks, however you want to structure it. And you want to go as hard as you possibly can for a short burst of time, then take a recovery break, and then go hard again with a recovery break. So what you'll realize is that if you do 45 minutes on and a couple of minutes off, or 40 on and 5 off, most people actually don't have the ability to fully focus for 40 minutes. Most people would struggle to be fully focused and tuned in for 3 minutes, right? Like that's how low our attention span is. So 20 and 10 or 25 and 5 seems like a very small amount of time to be fully focused before taking a break. But the reality is, I think many people would actually struggle to be fully focused for 25 minutes. So the principle is very simple. I'm sure all of you have been in a position where you've had friends that have messaged you and said, hey, we're coming over, and the house has been a mess. And you've just rapidly cleaned the house in time to be able to get stuff done. This happened the other day with Jason for us here. And so normally we would clean the house and it would take us maybe an hour, 2 or 3 hours, depending on how long it takes to get all the stuff done. And it wouldn't be done with any level of intensity. But when Jason says, hey, I'm coming over, I was like, fuck, I've got like 20 minutes. And we managed to clean the whole house in about 20, 30 minutes. He then ended up getting distracted and lost or whatever and took ages to get here, but the house was clean. And so if nothing else, putting in place a timer on your phone when you sit down to do something. Let's say, Millie, you're about to do emails, for example, or you're going to go and do the Masters of Coaching updated spreadsheet. Say, great, I've got 30 minutes right now. I've put an alarm in the phone for 30 minutes. I'm going to see as much as I possibly get done in that 30 minutes, and I'm not going to do anything else until the timer goes off. Now, the reality is you might not need that, but as a suggestion, it really does work. Same thing with dials. If you're going to do dials, set an alarm in your phone for an hour or 90 minutes. Smash it as hard as you can. As soon as that goes off, do something else. So putting in place those time restrictions just creates almost a bit of a game about it and allows you to focus your attention and really narrow your scope as well. It's tremendously effective for managing your time frames. It's just a really good cue for productivity and motivation. So with that in mind, I'm going to take you through 8 key pillars of productivity. But the key distinction that we want to think about is that there are 3 different factors that we need to have in alignment. It's not just time. It's time, it's energy, and it's attention. And if we can get the synergy of those 3 things to really come together, we can produce outstanding results. If we've got time but no energy and little attention, we're going to struggle. If we've got time and we've got attention, but we've got no energy, we're going to struggle. So we want to make sure that we can, as much as possible, control and maximize those 3 things. And I would say to you that time you've got anyway, right? You've got set amount of time. And if you're working, you know when you start, when you finish. That's pretty easy. But the energy aspect, all of the good wellness stuff that Jason and Ash take you through in wellness, they're the stuff that you should be doing anyway, right? And then the attention side of things as well is partly managing and minimizing your distractions, but it's also making sure as well you've got the other areas of your life in order. Because if you've got a relationship challenge going on in your family, that's going to be a drag and a distraction for you. It's going to take away from your attention. You still have the same energy and the same time, but you're not going to be able to fully focus and fully commit to the experience. So our goal is to do these 3 things. Number 1 is to go from doing more to getting more done. Number 2 is to go from input, I work more hours, to output, I get more accomplished. And then number 3 is we want to go from activity, being busy, to accomplishment, being able to get to the end of the day and go, cool, I achieved a great result today. So they're the 3 things that we're looking for. These are effectively our 8 key pillars, and I'm going to break each one down in detail. First one is to plan the week ahead. That's very, very important. Number 2 is to allocate your big rocks and your core priorities first. Number 3 is to allocate time for the rest and recovery and firefighting. That's also important as well, because they're key distractions that would normally take us away from the productive stuff. Number 4 is to clearly identify on time and off time, and then do something really meaningful with your off time. Number 5 is to focus on outcomes and what you want to achieve, not the work that needs to get done. Number 6 is to eliminate the triggers of distraction and self-sabotage. Number 7 is the theory of liberating constraints, which is to do less, but to get more done and to do it better. And then number 8 is that great days start and end even better, is that, the time that we spend, this time is absolutely critical. So if you want to have a great day, it's got to start great, it's got to finish great. I'm going to talk about the bookends of your day as well. So they're the big things to be aware of. First key principle, plan the week ahead. Every Sunday night, I'll sit down, normally before or after family dinner. It's normally after family dinner. I really enjoy doing it later on the Sunday night. And I carve out a few moments to review the week that was and look at the big rocks in the agenda for the week to come. This is absolutely critical time. If I don't spend this time, I'll wake up on Monday morning being really anxious and really frustrated, really stressed, because I feel like the week's already gotten ahead of me. It's very important to make sure I've got clarity. And my Monday mornings, as you'll see, are pretty hectic, as most of you guys know. So I want to make sure I'm already on top of the game. I want to assess my goals during that time, and my goals personally and professionally. And I want to consider if I've made progress. If I'm making progress, fantastic. But if I'm not making progress, I want to take a step back and go, why am I not making progress? One of the things that I realized early on was that I had a propensity to prioritize work and working later over going home and taking a break. So as a result of that, it means if I was working later in the evening, I was less likely to be able to get up first thing in the morning to go to the gym. So if my goal is to go to the gym and make sure I'm exercising and training well, I've got to make sure I knock off work at a certain amount of time to give myself adequate recovery time. That's very important. So you go for a week and it's easy to lose a week. At the end of the week, you actually, hold on, I was working late these nights, and as a result, I wasn't able to do what I wanted to do. A great distinction with that is we know that on Tuesday nights, I play soccer. I'll normally come in absolutely cooked. It'll take me a little while to cognitively calm down. So on Wednesday morning, we don't start our day till 10. So that's why Jason does teammates and Ben does the sales huddle. Why? So that we can recover and rest. I don't train on the morning on Wednesday, so we take that time to lie in a little bit. It's a little bit more of a relaxed morning, so we start at 10 as opposed to starting at 8. So this is important, right? We factored in those things to allow ourselves to better adjust to where our energy is at. Number 3 is to plan your week according to your big rocks and really set up your agenda for the week ahead. That's very important. Do this with a journal and a calendar. I use the iPad, obviously. I'll go through. And the good thing about it is, particularly with a journal or an iPad, is that you've got a record of all the previous weeks. You can reflect on everything that's going on. I would really encourage you guys, if you don't use them and you've got physical notepads, which I love, I just don't use anymore, is Moleskine journals. For years, I used to buy Moleskine journals. They're amazing. There's a lot of writers use them as well. And the beauty of them is as well, when you start filling them up, I've probably got the better part of probably about 100 of them now. It creates a collection of memories and ideas and reference points as well. All the different journals you get is cool, but I like the idea that they're all the same. And there's always been something in this for me as well, where Bill Gates once paid a couple of $1 million to buy Leonardo da Vinci's journals for his notes and his mind maps and that sort of stuff as well. And I like to think about the idea that at some point in time, what I've written down, my thoughts and reflections on my weeks, will be worth something, if nothing to somebody else, but maybe even to our family. And then number 5 is, what are the activities that can be done in conjunction with one another? And what are some of the things that have to be done in sequence? So this is important as part of your planning, right? There are some things that you can do almost simultaneously, or there's some things you might need to do on Monday to set yourself up for Thursday, right? There's some things you can't just get done on Thursday. You've got to prepare for that. Great example was Father's Day this week. I should have spent time earlier in the week getting ready for Father's Day, but I completely forgot about it. We got until Sunday morning. We're driving around the last minute trying to buy chocolate from the shops and find Father's Day cards. It was a clusterfuck. So spending and creating that time is important, because I knew that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday were fully booked with sales calls and an event. I didn't have time to go to the shops. So you end up being reactive, and then you waste time and waste money in that process. Then the next big thing is to consider, what are your 3 priorities for Monday, and they've got to be written down. So 3 big rocks for Monday, what you want to accomplish. And then what I do is every night when I finish the day, I'll write down my 3 priorities for the next day. So what that means is I get up on Monday morning. Mentally, I've already got all the stuff out of my head from the week that was on paper. Excellent. 2, I'm already thinking about the week ahead, so I'm already ahead of the curve. I feel like I'm on the front foot. And 3, I don't have to think about what I'm meant to do with the day because I already thought about it last night. And I did that before I took a cognitive recharge, going to sleep. And so now I'm waking up fresh, but I've also got it written down. So when I get up first thing in the morning, it's there written down. I know exactly what I'm meant to do with the time in the day, so I don't have to think about it. There's nothing worse than feeling stressed starting your day, knowing you've got a heap of stuff to do, but not really knowing where you need to start. And what I would say to all of you is that's just because you're not prepared enough for the day and the week ahead. And that discipline of taking the time on Sunday night is really critical. It's a non-negotiable time for me. And I've tried to blend it where we're watching something as well. And it needs to be completely isolated for me. So I know a lot of very successful entrepreneurs, their families will go to sleep and then, they'll put the kids to bed, they'll say goodnight to their partner, and then they'll go and take that time for themselves. If you can get it done during the day as well, that's all good. This week we did it a little bit earlier. I did it about 4 o'clock, which was fine. It still worked. But that time is absolutely essential for me. And I really encourage you guys to incorporate it as well. If there's going to be a night where you have less sleep to prioritize something, I would encourage you to sleep less on Sunday night, but prioritize that than if you needed to sacrifice it. So just keep that in mind. So that's number 1. Number 2 is to allocate your big rocks and priorities. So this is what my calendar looks like for the week ahead. Right? There are some things that are set every week, right? So for example, I know I've got Wild Mentoring on a Monday morning, then I've got the conversation with the One Life team, I've got MOC and AOC on Tuesdays normally, and then I've got Wild Launch on Wednesdays. So those things are already blocked out. I've got our team meetings already in the calendar. So there are some things that are consistent, and this is just my work calendar. But what you'll notice is that I've allocated big rocks. So I've got 3 big rocks, or 3 things I can get done on Monday in 60-minute blocks. I've got 2 things that I can do on Tuesdays. I've got a couple obviously on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and we actually don't have anything on Fridays. That's normally fully deleted, but I just did it for the purpose of illustration. So what you want to do is break down your day and put in place the meetings and the agenda that we've already got. So put in place those things, but you want to start with your own personal things as well. So I actually start with the personal stuff first, put in my training time and those types of things, and then I'll add in the other stuff as part of that. What then the week looks like as we work through it is I then go through, and the night before or the week ahead, I'll actually allocate and change the color codes over the things that are meetings or important things. So if I've already scheduled something in, I know that, for example, on Monday, a couple of weeks ago, was a Go High Level update with Ash and with Shannara. That was set from 1 till 2. So that allocated time is already taken up. I ended up finishing the week and I still had a couple of appointments available on Thursdays that I ended up doing different activities with. But the idea is I blocked out that time. And so if I've got a meeting or I've got something on, I can go allocate it into one of those time blocks. But I know effectively I've only got in a given week about 14 hours worth of productive time outside of the stuff that's already scheduled, meetings and reviews and all that stuff. So I've got 14 blocks. When you've only got 14 blocks in a week, and you guys might have 30 blocks in a week, but when you've only got that, you realize, okay, well, every block is valuable. And if someone's going to take up one of those blocks, it's important. So I'll give you an example. The week before I put this in place, I'd scheduled a breakfast coffee with an old client and friend, Jared Harmon, on Wednesday. I was like, that is a block of time that's so valuable. That one takes up one of my 14 hours. It's not worth that for that time with Jared. So instead, I rescheduled him to my off day, which is Friday, and we caught up on Friday instead. So it's about understanding when's personal, when's business, and making sure that you've allocated that time productively and effectively. And again, by having a mentality of I've got limited resources, it means you maximize the time you've got available as much as possible. Now, it doesn't matter if your schedule looks like this, but I would encourage you to have one. There's a lot of people, I would relate it for you that if you've been through this process, you'll understand. You go from high school where everything down to the minute is regulated for you to university. And most people piss away the first 12 months of uni because they have no structure and then they've just got all this freedom and they end up doing a whole heap of nothing other than going to the pub and getting drunk, and they don't produce anything with that time because no one's telling them what to do. So you've got to impose that structure in your life. And I'll be honest, quite a few of these sessions, I can tell you specifically on Wednesday, book review 1 and book review 2 didn't happen. Energetically and attention-wise, I wasn't in the headspace to do a book review. I still was productive at the time. I just did something else. But I can tell it's better to have it and change it than not to have it at all, because I never would have done anything with it. And at least I feel like, well, is this more valuable than doing a book review? And I can make a judgment call. Does this make sense for everybody? Yeah. I would say that all of you, need more structure in your day, not less. It's better to overcompensate and have too much structure and feel a bit restricted and then ease off a little bit than to feel yourself having all of this freedom and then you end up just wasting it. So having that structure in place allows you to be creative and allows you to be much more fully focused. So allocate your structured day as part of that. For Millie, for example, you might not have 1 hour blocks, you might have 30-minute blocks, but you might be able to get 5 or 6 30-minute blocks done. And so it's like, well, I've got a 30-minute block to get this done. I'm going to be able to get that done in that space. For the sales team, you guys might have hour blocks there for learning and education. You might have an hour block there for prospecting dials as well, scheduled throughout the course of the week. You might have a block out time for just bookings. So, you've got bookings done at a certain point. I'd also say from an energy perspective, you might be more productive and more energized and more compelling on the phones in the morning than you are in the evening. So create that constraint. It does mean you'll miss out on bookings that could come through in the evening, yes, but you'll be more effective with the bookings you've got. Remember, the goal is not to have bookings. The goal is to make sales. So you've got to work to your own individual strengths as much as humanly possible, right? So just keep that in mind. Next one is rest, recover, and firefighting. If you notice, if you go back to my calendar, you'll see here on Monday, on Wednesday, and on Thursday, I've already got blocked out firefighting and follow-up. I know there'll be some shit that goes wrong in the day, i.e. yesterday with You Can Book Me. Now that's a tier 1 problem because it affects all of the sales team, but most of the other stuff, a client complaint, someone with a refund request, some issue that comes up every day. If I didn't have that time booked out, then what would happen is I'd be in the middle of something, there'd be a problem or a fire that would get started, and it would draw my attention and focus. And most times out of 10, probably 90%, the fire that I'm fighting is not as valuable as the work that I was attempting to do. So if you've got it set up where you go, cool, I know from 3:30 to 4 to wrap up the day, I'm going to review any of the fires that need to be fought and any of the follow-up that needs to happen. It's there. And so when a fire comes up, go, cool, I'll deal with it then. And that same approach should be done for administration. It should be done for client complaints or any of those things. So from Sharon and Millie's perspective, when you guys are in care team, anything that's regarding client complaints or wanting refunds or any of that sort of stuff as well, I'd be flagging that and dealing with that at a set point in time. It's also important as well, because if you condense the amount of time that you deal with those types of things, effectively you batch those problems, it doesn't feel like there's constant inquiries or requests for refunds. It's no, I had 5 of them, but it's better to deal with 5 in 1 hour and get them all done than it is to try and deal with 5 over the course of 5 hours, 1 every hour, because you feel like it's constant. So this is really important. If you don't allocate time for those things, you're going to have a real problem. So rest and recovery. This can be your admin time if you're in sales. This can be emails and client inquiries if you're in admin. But basically anything that could take your focus away from the type of work that's really going to make a difference in the business. Ultimately, if you don't put your priorities in your schedule, our clients will put their priorities in your schedule. And as a result of that, we don't get paid to prioritize them. We get paid to grow an amazing business that serves them. And sometimes that means that we have to take a bit more time. I'd rather we have a slower response rate for emails and messages and requests and all that stuff, but we're more productive and effective and have a bigger business, than be really good at that stuff and find we don't get anything else done, because we're not big enough just to have that. So we've got to make sure we focus on what's really going to make the difference. Taking time out of the day is essential. It's also really important to have time for deeper thinking. When you take time away and you've got time to think about what you were doing, it allows you to unload mentally and also gain perspective. And very importantly, it also creates space for you to catch yourself if you've fallen into a busy trap. Because certainly we're all human, we're all reactive. And so we'll get into a space, we go, actually, fuck, if I know I've got to take a coffee break at this time, or I've got this happening at a certain point, I can look back and go, hey, that happened and that wasn't super productive and I can change that. But otherwise that would be the whole day if you didn't put in place those sort of pit stops along the way. I would also encourage you, if you can during that time, to be physically active. And that doesn't have to be doing a workout. It could simply be going for a walk to the coffee shop to get a coffee. It could be walking downstairs or up or whatever to get a drink. Changing your environment a little bit. Even just taking a minute to go outside and get some sunlight and some fresh air. Alex, obviously, if you've already done your 1 hour, don't leave the house. But you understand the principle, right? This is effective time. So we want to make sure we've got that. It's absolutely essential and vital. There's not a high performance athlete in the world that doesn't prioritize recovery above anything else. And so that's the number one most important thing. Being productive is also coming down really critically to how well you're sort of filling your cups. That's very important. Next one is to identify clear on time or off time. You have two choices. You can be a cow or you can be a lioness. And for the gentlemen that are on the call, you can choose to be a lioness or a lion. It's up to you. But the reference point is a cow does nothing all day productive, just grazes, just eats grass the whole day, right? Effectively, they work 8 hours a day or 12 hours a day. Nothing really strenuous happens. They just keep doing little bits, right? And so we're not cows. We have a much greater alignment to the way that a lion or a lioness would think about the world. And so there's a huge amount of time spent in recovery. Most of the day is spent sleeping. Then there's obviously a period of time to eat. But when they are hunting, it's a tremendous amount of energy and attention and focus. You know, talk about time, energy, and attention. There's all of that. So it's absolutely a desperate, obsessive focus. Then there's the hunt, kill, eat, sleep, and recover. Right? There's some other things in there, but given the Charons on the call, I'll exclude them. The point being is that they're fully fucking focused. And so the idea is we're not cows. I don't care if you do 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, or 2 hours. The idea is that whatever you're doing with that, it is all of you or none of you. And so it's on and off. There's set times when I'm on and I'm fully focused. There's set times when I'm not on and fully focused. Now, in the team, we have a couple of different levels of our team members, right? Obviously for Ash and I, there's always an element of always being on, right? Because at the end of the day, the buck stops with us. But if wherever possible, there's clear times when we're on and when we're off. For the team that are in our leadership team, you guys have a little bit more of a bracket creep in that space. But for most, nearly all of us, there should be clear times when you're on and off. And the same thing goes as well, on and off in terms of being on the phones, on and off in terms of being in your computer, on and off in terms of being connecting with clients. You want to really make sure you've got those clear distinctions. And then do something meaningful with the time that you're off and use that time really productively. Next one, outcome, not work focused. So before you approach a time block, ask yourself, what's my outcome for this section or this session? What do I want to achieve? How will I know when it's done? And what's the fastest and most effective way for me to get from A to B? That's it. If you focus and ask those three questions before you start anything, you'll be amazed at how little you do, but how much you get done. Because most things that we do, we can't even answer these questions for. And if you can't really answer the question, then you got to ask yourself, why the fuck am I doing it in the first place? Now, with extension of that, just be aware that there are some things that Ash and I have had a conversation at a higher level, right? Even with the leadership team, where we've gone, this is the outcome we want to accomplish. And as a result, to get from A to B, these are the things that need to happen. And then you've been empowered to do one of those things. So it might not be absolutely clear how what you need to do is going to get there in terms of what it's for, but it may be in alignment. But I would assume that we don't know what we're talking about if you don't know what you're focused on. So if you don't have clarity over what you're doing and how it's contributing to the bigger picture, we need to have a conversation about that as well, so that we can get clear on that, because we want everyone to be productive and be focused and not just doing the business that we have, but obviously growing and creating the business that we want. I would say to all of you that one of the biggest things that we don't communicate about enough is capacity. If we're effectively doubling our business, which we're on track to do this year, and maybe even tripling it, you can't triple a business and triple the amount of time and energy and effort everyone spends in the business, right? The goal is to increase the business, to triple the business, but to be able to do the same amount of work, which means we've got to be more effective with that work, or we've got to be able to do different work. So we've got to have conversations about it, because otherwise you have bracket creep, you spend more time doing less productively, and then you end up burning out. We don't want that to be the case, because then you lose people. So we need to have those conversations as much as possible. A lot of what we do adds no value to the end outcome and is effectively a massive waste of your time. So if you don't have clarity around what you're doing, we want to hear about it. This is a huge one, which is eliminating triggers for distraction. Big ones is the average worker does about 2.3 hours of work a day. So if you consider in an 8-hour day, that's a tremendous amount of lost time. There's a half a day a week of duplicate work. The average person checks their emails 36 times an hour. There's 56 disruptions in an average day, and 44% of that, about 25, is self-inflicted. So you're sabotaging your own shit, not somebody else coming up to you. I mean, the good news is we don't have an office, so no one can come and tap you on the shoulder unless you're living with people in your house, and some of you are and some of you aren't. But it's important to know 44% of that waste is self-inflicted. There's a maximum of 1 minute of fully focused time, and the average person picks up their phone once every 8 minutes or 80 times a day on average. In fact, just as a reference point here, go to your phone, check out your screen time, and it'll tell you how many pickups that you've had on your phone over the course of a week. Where's mine? Pickups on average. I don't know how to find the numbers here. On average is, the average is about 60 for me. Monday, yesterday was 103, but my average is about 60 to 100 pickups a day. So think about that. If you were to do an 8-hour day, that's, if it's let's say it's a 10-hour day, that's about 10 times every hour I'm picking up my phone. That's time that you're not being effective. It's time when you're doing other shit. Now, some of that's for work, but let's not kid ourselves. Let's assume that it's actually for something else. So we want to be aware of that. Here's some suggestions. Number one, no notifications. No notifications, okay? You check in when you schedule a check-in. So that means Slack, that means Messenger, that means Facebook, that means Instagram, that means your mom. Like whatever it means to be able to eliminate distractions, you need to make sure there's no notifications. There shouldn't be anyone in our company that has notifications turned on their computer or on their phone. Now, phones are a big one, but obviously on the computer as well, there are websites and emails and that sort of stuff that will send you notifications when you've received stuff. You got to turn all of that off. It's very, very important. If you're going on to Facebook for whatever reason, pretty much no one should be on Facebook during the day, but if you are and you're going on your desktop, have Facebook newsfeed eradicator turned on. What it does means you can go onto the desktop, but there's no newsfeed. It just gets rid of the newsfeed for you, because what will happen is you'll log in and you'll just start scrolling, not realizing you'll lose a couple of minutes. Next one, block out time for emails, for social, and for Slack. It's important. They're important things as part of our company, but it means that every other time is a blockout zone, the way you're not on them. The tabs are not open, the apps are not installed, etc. You've even logged out. It's very, very important. If it's really important, team, we'll call you. Otherwise, it's not life and death, and it probably can wait till the end of the day. So have time at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day to do that check-in if you want to. But outside of that, it's not effective for you to be on there. Anything that's really important is going to be able to wait for the end of the day. You want to make sure you enforce really clear boundaries with your family, except obviously the ones that pay you, for anyone that is related to us, obviously on the call. But make sure you've got really clear boundaries and you enforce them, and you let them know how much the time is worth, right? And so if your goal is to do 100 grand a year, well, that means that there's a certain hourly rate that you're meant to be working towards. And if you get disrupted in that hour, then you've lost that hour because you could have been more productive and effective. So you got to make sure you have that conversation. And I would encourage all of you, if you can, is to actually work from somewhere that's not your home. Having space when you're outside of your home is very valuable, because I mean, how many times in a day do we get up and go to the cupboard or go to the fridge, right? It's like there's a reason why that friction is put in place. And so having a productive working environment means that you just don't have any ability to distract you, because the people that would come into the office and just ask you a question randomly during the day are not people that would drive all the way to your office, come through your doors and interrupt you while you're at work. And they wouldn't probably call you either. And if they do, just let it go. If they call you twice, it's probably important. Next one, and we're nearly wrapped up here, is the theory of liberating constraints. So removing choices and imposing limitations in areas of your life to create freedom in other areas that really matter. So the idea is do less overall personally, but as a result, you're able to do even more with the time that you've got. So some examples: wearing the same clothes every day, eating the same foods, setting the same wake up and bedtimes, morning routines, evening routines, automating and outsourcing as much as you possibly can. The idea is any of the decisions that you make in the day, if you can find a way to set them on autopilot without having to think about them, it's going to free up mental headspace and creativity for you to do all the other stuff. So, we do this all the time. Set morning routine, pretty straightforward. Set evening routine, clear end goals. I just went recently to Target. I told you guys about this. I bought a whole heap of the same t-shirts. I bought a whole heap of the same boxer shorts. I bought a whole heap of the same socks. So now every day I get up and I effectively wear the same clothes every single day. The only two distinctions is I have a gray Tommy shirt, and I have a blue Tommy shirt, but other than that, that's it. And so I just grab one thing from the pile, I don't even think, don't even look, just grab it. I grab socks, underwear, I'm ready to go. So the idea is that that's not a huge thing, but let's say that was 5 or 10 different decisions. 5 or 10 different decisions over 7 days is 70 decisions. That's over the course of 12 of a year. That's 3,500 different decisions. Imagine using 3,500 different decisions on shit that mattered, not necessarily on what you were wearing or what socks or underwear you had. Not to mention all the stress of trying to figure that out if it's not clean. It's just a pain in the ass. So having less to do means you get more done. And what I would encourage you to do as an exercise, start at the beginning of your day and think about everything that you do in terms of every decision that you make from the start of your day all the way to the end of your day. And then see if you can try and put in rules around like automatic stuff. So if you have a coffee, you have the same coffee every single time. The barista knows it, it's easy. If you go to lunch, you have lunch, the same restaurant, the same food, the same thing every single time. If you have a smoothie in the morning, it's the same. Like there's an element of variety in life, but as much as possible, we want to regulate our environment to be able to perform at a higher possible level. And that's not just so you work more, but so that you've got a greater level of flexibility in other areas of your life. Friction increases the amount of resources that we require in order to create the result that you're looking for. So the less friction you can have in your life, the better it's going to be. And if you've got kids and your family look after, I'd encourage you to have the conversation with your partner and your kids as well, and be able to set up those distinctions as well to be able to get more done. And then final principle is looking at your morning and evening rituals. So I'm going to just simplify these down. You want to start your day with the big three: movement, mindfulness, and nutrition, right? That's very important. So number one is when you get up in the morning, you should be moving in some way, shape, or form, right? It doesn't have to be, a heavy exercise or a lifting session, but you want to be moving your bodies. At the very least, go and buy a rebounder and just bounce on the rebounder. It does tremendous stuff for your circulation and blood flow and lymphatic system. It's excellent. So first thing in the morning, you want to move straight away. Get the body started. Go for a walk if you can, do something like that. Number two is mindfulness. Meditation, writing, reflecting, taking time to prepare and think about the day. Otherwise, you get super reactive. Very, very important. And then number three is nutrition. The biggest one with regards to nutrition, first thing, is just drinking water. You're going to be dehydrated. So you want to make sure you drink a liter of water straight away when you get up out of bed. And I'd encourage you, if you can, do that with a bit of fresh lemon, and also do that as well with some Himalayan rock salt first thing in the morning.
Cucumber is good as well.
Yep, I'm sure it is. So chuck that in. If you've got cucumber, be super fancy. So you want to do that first thing. And if you can as well, if you're not fasting, if you're not doing intermittent fasting, then certainly you want to try and have a great source of protein and some fiber straight away. Now that can be as simple as just having a protein shake straight away to get the day started. There's a certain rule Jace will have on it in terms of what it is. I think it's 30 within 30 or 30 grams of protein and fiber within 30 minutes of waking up or something around that concept. But the idea is have something really good first thing in the morning to get the day started. If you're going to have coffee, obviously have your coffee as well. That's going to make a big impact to get your day started. And then number two is the end of the day with the big three. Number one is sleep hygiene. If there's one thing that's going to make a difference in the quality of your life is the quality of your sleep. The science on this is overwhelming. And so we need to be sleeping 7.5 hours. There's no exceptions. There's no, but I'm someone that doesn't need it. You all fucking do. So every one of us should be sleeping for at least 7.5 hours a night. And you're probably aiming to be in bed for at least 8 hours, which means 30 minutes before bed to be able to wind down and reflect. So 7.5 hours. The room has to be dark. It has to be cold. Okay. So we're looking for darkness, complete darkness. Go and buy blockout curtains if you need to. Make sure that happens. And it needs to be cold as well. For me personally, I also need to have no sound. But some people like to have, there's an app called Rain you can have as well, which makes nature sounds. That's totally fine. But dark and cold is very important. And if you can, you want to try and make sure there's no screens in the room as much as possible. And there's no blue light. You can get glasses and shit like that, but effectively just those three things are the big ones. No caffeine after 2 p.m. Or any stimulants really. You want to make sure you're in a good position to wind down effectively. Some people might not even be able to have caffeine after lunchtime, depends on how you metabolize it. But you might want to supplement that with a couple of things. Turmeric which is really good for anti-inflammatory as well while you're sleeping. Melatonin, you can get it naturally from the chemist. It's excellent. If you struggle to go to sleep, this is a really good thing to take intermittently that'll allow you to have a much deeper sleep. And then also magnesium. This is very important, right? Great for sleep quality, put you into a much deeper sleep, allow your body to fully relax, and is really excellent for recovery. Most people are deficient in it. And then the final piece as well is no sleep, no screens for 30 minutes to an hour before bed. Take that time to connect with your partner. Take that time to read and to journal and to reflect and to relax. Do something inspired with that little bit of time before you go to bed, but just make sure you're setting the day up for success and you've got a clear end of your day as well. So that gives you the start and the end. You might want to add into those things as well, some things like priming, for example, some things like cold therapy. You're having a cold shower, and you don't have to have just a cold shower, right? If you don't pay the bills, by the way, that'll happen anyway. But having hot and cold alternating showers really works, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. We obviously do cold therapy straight away in the morning. We've got a sauna coming in a couple of weeks' time. So we're going to have a sauna session on a morning as well as part of that. So those things, yoga, meditation, those types of things will really set you up for success. They make you a better person. As a result, that means you're a better employee as well, or a better business owner. And the final principle that will really change the game for you is what's known as batching your time effectively, right? So multitasking doesn't exist unless you're a computer that has a dual processor or a quad processor. We don't have that. So what effectively we're doing is what's known as task switching, right? Or switch tasking. I got that back to front. It's task switching, and it doesn't work for humans, right? The science is overwhelming. And so instead, what we want to do is focus on doing one thing tremendously well, and then doing the next thing, not half-assing two things. And so you want to batch your activities together. So like for like. So for example, if you're doing emails, have set time to do client customer service emails, and then times when you're not doing it. Don't try to do emails whilst also doing something else. If you're doing prospecting, do prospecting, and then do admin separately. Do all your admin at the end of the day, do all your prospecting at the start of the day. Set up the day where there are set blocks of time for those activities and get as much done as what you can in those things. This one principle alone will double your productivity if you just batch your times effectively. For me, I try to batch all my sales calls at the exact same blocks. So I'm not just doing a sales call and I've got a bit of dead time and I've got another sales call and another dead time. There's a reason why on Tuesdays we do AOC and MOC back to back, because I'm in coaching mode for 4 hours straight. It's much easier for me to do coaching for 4 hours straight than it is for me to do 2 hours, then a break of other shit, and then another 2 hours, because now I've got to get in between and out of emotional zones, right? So that's very, very important. For me personally, my most productive, most creative, most driven time is first thing in the morning. So really managing that time before lunch, before I've eaten, is very critical. I know if I've had lunch, I'm going to have a natural slump. So you want to set up activities that are not high impact straight after lunch to give you that time to do something different. So it's just about taking some awareness and stepping back into considering the key principles that we've got as part of that structure as well. So that is effectively, ladies and gents, our productivity and time management session. Hopefully you guys got some big things out of that and some big things to take away. There's a lot in there. You don't need to implement all of it, but if you focus on implementing just some of it, it's going to go a long way. If I can summarize just a few things as some big rocks to take away. Number one is to focus on making sure that your day, if you want to have a successful day today, it starts yesterday. It starts yesterday with planning the day ahead. It starts yesterday with getting a great night's sleep. If you do those two things well, you'll be set up for massive success. Yeah, so that's very important. Then when you're in the day itself, making sure you've got a great morning routine, you've got breaks throughout the day, set times when you'll be focusing on different things. Batching time is a huge game changer. It requires a bit of discipline because there's going to be a desire to do shit outside of that, but that's important. And then number three, no distractions. Eliminate anything that you've got going on in your life that would be a natural distraction, both online and offline, from you being able to get shit done. And then the final principle as well is the reason why we're productive is to achieve great results. If you're not inspired by what we're trying to accomplish, we need to work on the goals, but we've also got to as well put pressure on it, on our work, by having a really meaningful and a really inspired personal life. So we want to make sure we've got good shit going on there, such that you want to work hard to finish work to do those other things. And so that's naturally part of those principles as well. Hopefully that makes a bit of sense. Excellent. As you implement this stuff, guys, it's an experimentation, right? As you implement it, you'll get feedback, you'll see what works and you'll see what doesn't work. There's going to be some aspects that'll stick with you, some aspects that won't, but keeping stuff top of mind awareness is very important. Having your key things written down is going to go a long way. Happy days, guys. Go and kick some big goals. We'll let you know how we go, and sending you guys a heap of love.